If you're afraid of success, go ahead and tune out because this segment is not for you. Every year, Higher Ed talks about change, but Insights EDU 2026, that's not another conference. It's the catalyst. It's where fresh data drops, revealing real insights on how modern learners are thinking, searching, and deciding right now. And here's a spoiler for higher ed leaders. Most institutions aren't keeping up. 3 days on the beach, February 17th to the 19th, 2026, in Fort Lauderdale. Over 65 powerhouse speakers, 40 sessions, zero fluff. We're talking unfiltered strategy, AI integrations, and forward thinking built for the leaders who want to disrupt before they're disrupted. So here's the question. Are you ready to lead transformation or be overtaken by it? Reserve your spot now at insightsedu.com. Early bird pricing ends December 15th. EdUp Experience has brought you powerful conversations with more than 400 college presidents and higher ed leaders, over 1,000 episodes and counting. Now, we're inviting you to join us in shaping the future of higher ed podcasting. For just $5.99 a month, you lock in that rate for life, but only if you sign up before December 31st, 2025. As a supporter, you'll get ad-free early access to episodes. Prices go up after December 31st, but your rate never will. Visit edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com. Click support the show and join our community today. Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to Ed Up on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Elvin Freitas, co-founder of the EdUp Experience, and we are back on another episode of EdUp Extra. Why? Because who doesn't love a little extra goodness in their life? So today I have my first time guest co-host. He is Darius Goldman, and he's the founder and CEO at Career Bond. Darius, how you doing today?
Doing great, Alvin. Love the enthusiasm.
You like that little extra and goodness in your life, don't you? Don't you all deserve anything?
That's right.
Good to have you for the first time. That's great. So, I like to get right into it. So I am going to bring in our guest. Ladies and gentlemen, he is C.T. Turner. He's CEO at the GED Testing Service. CT, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad that you're here. And I love to get right into things. So tell us all about the GED Testing Service. What do you do and how do you do it?
Yeah, sure. So let me start by saying I probably feel like sometimes I have one of the most gratifying jobs in the world. Best way to kind of say what we do is use a story, right? So Let me start off. Let me tell you about Jennifer. So Jennifer's a mom in Florida, 39. She did something extraordinary, which is something that the GED team, enables every day. She left high school at 17, number of things happening in her family life. Life got in the way, right? That's what I hear from so many of our learners. Like, life's messy. Life gets in the way, sometimes by your own doing, a lot of times by other people's doing, right? So she's raising 3 kids solo all this time. She's focused on surviving, right? Working, parenting, do the best she can to raise her family. She has an autistic son she's supporting, an elderly parent she's supporting. So school, no way, right? That's a luxury, something that you can't afford when you're in that situation, paying. And then last year, something changed. Her health insurance provider and Medicaid provider, United Healthcare, they sent her a note, said they wanted to offer to pay for the GED preparation and testing, kind of like a turnkey service for her. That's a big financial lift. But she said it was kind of a signal from the universe. It said, time to do this. You can do this, right? So she starts studying from home. She squeezes in studying time between going to coming back, caring for her father, caring for her kids, late nights, whatever it took. She learned on Facebook groups, YouTube, things from the GED website. Also, her daughter helped on some of the math, which was toughest subject for her and most of our students, right? And when we talked with her, she said quitting was not an option. She didn't do this the first time through, and she wanted to be a good role model for her kids. She keeps telling her kids not to quit on things, so how could she quit? So fast forward, she got through her first 3 tests, 4 subtests, three subtests, got to her 4th one, which was math. She passed it. The first thing she did, she cried, right? That she actually got done with that. She went out and celebrated with her kids. She put that diploma on her wall. And, she said every time she goes by it, she smiles. So what is she doing now? So now she's still working part-time, caring for her family, but she's also enrolled in a nursing program. So she's building a future for herself, future she didn't think was possible before. She's going to help save lives. She's in a profession we have a critical shortage in. And as an added benefit for all of us and for her, she's off Medicaid. So, that's what we do every day. And she's just proof that it's never too late. Whether you're 18, 19, 39, 49, you can do this and it can change everything. So those are the stories that we hear, every day. And that's what we concentrate on, is enabling those people to get back into better situations, better economic opportunities, open those doors to higher level career training programs, post-secondary programs, no matter where they're at.
That's such a beautiful story, and I appreciate you saying that, CT. And before I hand it over to Darius, I got a follow-up question. I know, maybe I'm wrong, but isn't the GED like massive? Talk about the scale there, because it's just one story. You talk about some of the numbers that you got going on there.
Yeah, sure. So let me give you some numbers here. So we delivered 1 million GED tests, subject tests this last year, 1 million. So, students are in different phases of their journey taking these subtests. It's comprised of 4 tests. We have about 160,000 graduates a year. Most are in the US, but we have offered the GED test now in more than 90 countries. And of those grads every year, 60% of them are enrolling in a college program within 1 to 3 years, most within 1 year. And virtually all of the international students are going to a university straight away. And then just to blow your mind a little bit, there are 21 million graduates since the program started in 1942. I'd say probably one of the largest and definitely one of the most unique alumni networks in the world. And you can find a GED grad in every facet of American workforce, right? So entrepreneurs, actors, Olympians, teachers, doctors, nurses, engineers, even astronauts, even a president of one of the Federal Reserve Banks is a GED graduate.
Super interesting. I have two thoughts on that just astound me, the size of it. But you mentioned something that I didn't grasp, even with looking into this before and researching for this episode. The international student. I would love for you to double click on that. Is it, and maybe it's option 3, but is it that they go to high school abroad, but they still need the GED to then qualify for higher education in the States? Or is it the latter, where they may not have finished their own local high school? Or is it something else?
Yeah, you know what? It's a mix. I'd say it does. They do tend to sort of one category. And so if you look at what most international students are doing, is they're either tacking it on to their local curriculum. So they're getting their version of a K-12 certificate, and then they're getting this add-on American recognized, American awarded 12th grade equivalent credential, right, or diploma. And so then they're using that because it's very portable and understood, and the reputation of American credentials is, where it is. And so some of them desire to come to the U.S., study in the U.S., whether for undergrad or eventually for grad work, but they're also going to Canada, Australia, wherever it is. We have a big concentration of GED graduates actually in Asia. That's our largest population. Sometimes they're using that to go to university in their home countries. Most of them are using it to go abroad. So we have a large contingent in Thailand. So those students are going into programs in Thailand, but they're also using that to go over into Malaysia and, some other places. And then just sort of a different facet to that is we also work with like UNHCR and other organizations that are helping refugees. And so, man, I met a student, brought me to tears. He was born in a refugee camp. His father was killed in a war. His mom, he was raised in that refugee camp. It was the GED was the only pathway for him to get out. He earned that credential. He went across the border to a university. He's now in a teaching program, and he plans to go back and help teach others, to basically prepare others for the GED test. So it's a pathway out of that country for them.
Yeah, that one's powerful. That one actually resonates a little with me. I'm a first generation American. My mother came from Iran when she was 16. She didn't speak a lick of English. She actually came here, went to school here, and then through education assimilated. But to be able to almost outsource that step, which is what you didn't use that word, but that's what I'm hearing, outsource the GED, do it abroad, then come here. It almost shortens the track. It's quite powerful.
I think that's a really good kind of it's an illustration of another thing that happens with the GED is we have people who come from other countries who may have professional credentials that they can't get recognized, right? And so one of the partners we work with on our AI piece, Space AI, her parents came over. Her father was highly educated. English was a bit of a barrier for him, but those credentials didn't transfer. And so we have professional people who come over, they take the GED test so that they can easily get into that university program or retrain or get whatever certification they need. So multiple ways. But the bottom line is you can see that the GED is an alternate pathway. That's not an alternate pathway for one type of learner. It's for lots of different type of learners. And so another thing we see internationally and sometimes in the US is we have learners that something happened, they want to get through more quickly, potentially, right? Because of something going on with their life. And I mean, we have a kid that was 14 years old who took the GED test because he needed a credential and he went to go study at an Ivy League institution. So lots of types of learners are using the GED pathway.
You mentioned quickly. This sort of goes to the other thought on my mind that I wanted to get in, and you gave me the segue, so thank you. I went to high school 4 years, messed around a lot, got my act together towards the end. But so if I'm looking at this from the perspective of someone not familiar with the GED program, 4 years is my unknowing metric. I can't imagine it takes 4 years, your program. So talk to me about the traditional high school path versus your accelerated path.
Yeah, sure. Again, this is so individualized. And that's one thing I love about the program is it meets people where they are. And so you could be a learner that, dropped out in 10th grade and you were at a 7th grade math level, right? Or a 4th grade reading level, whatever it is. It may take you 2 years to get through a program, right? You could be someone who dropped out in your second semester in 11th grade for some reason or another. You go work for a couple of years, you come back. It might only take you 3 months to do that. So it really depends. And it's proficiency based. It's not seat time based. And that's another thing we see sometimes is people get stuck in a situation where credits don't transfer or something happens, they went study abroad, whatever it was, they come back, it's not what they expected. So instead of sitting in a seat for another semester, GED is a pathway for them to get that credential on their normal path and get on to that next thing, which is a career training or college program.
That's probably, if I'm thinking like from the consumer's perspective and the frictions to doing this, I don't want to spend 4 years. So you prove that it's not hours based, it's proficiency based. Could you talk a little bit about that? What type of proficiencies is the exam preparing you for or testing you to see where you're already at to dispel that stigma that, okay, 4 years, sit in class, this many hours?
Yep, sure. And so it is proficiency based. It's based on the knowledge and skills that an average American high school student would have. Basically, 60% of GED or high school students would pass the GED test on their first attempt. That's basically how it's normed. And so it has about 11 subjects that it's studying across all 4 subtests, but they're divided into 4 subtests, which science, social studies, math, and reasoning through language arts. There's reading and writing in there, et cetera. And so those are the things that we're measuring. One of the key differences from what I see internationally and what I see in the old GED test is there's a lot of reading comprehension. It's that I like to call it academic bulimia, where you binge and purge. Like I used to hate history because you just stuff your brain with these facts and you peep them out on a test and then you forget about them, right? So what we do is we really build the entire test to look at problem solving and critical thinking across the entire spectrum. So you're not memorizing dates. What you're doing is saying, how can I take content, use these skills, use this knowledge to kind of infer, get evidence, and then answer that question. And so the test is really based on that proficiency, again, not drilling. And so you can be confident of what a GED grad can do. I've talked with some employers who said they'd rather hire a GED grad than their local K-12 student because they can count change. They're, just things they know every one of them can do. And then another just sort of stat thing for those out there that are interested in this is we did a match with the post-secondary student clearinghouse, right? Mm-hmm. This was pre-COVID, but when we looked at the GED test before we made these massive changes in 2014, the semester to semester persistence in higher education was about 30%. After we implemented the new program, it was close to 90%. So these GED grads have the proficiency, they have the skills, they have the determination, they have grit. It takes a lot of grit to get through this program when life's going on around you and you're trying to fit this in as well. And so these students are hungry, they're ready for post-secondary, they're performing in post-secondary, they're ready to get out into the workforce.
Do you track them after GED to the percentage that goes to what I'll call the traditional 4-year path versus what we're seeing a skewing towards now of that accelerated at the post-secondary level? Some people call them boot camps or certificate training or skills-based training or workforce training, where instead of 4 years, it's 4 months to 8 months.
Yeah, we did that pre-COVID. COVID kind of messed up the data on a number of for lots of different reasons. Pre-COVID, I would say we knew that 60% were going into post-secondary, within that 1 to 3 years. And it was almost 40% were going to a 4-year institution versus a 2-year institution. So it's a clue, I think, of that one. But I think I know the world has changed so dramatically, right? So I don't know what those numbers would be today. We're trying to get at those numbers now, both on the post-secondary side and then also on the workforce and employment side to track GED grads. So we know what they're doing. They're going into these post-secondary programs, but my gut says they're probably skewing even more heavily now post-COVID and just what's going on in the world towards these, industry-aligned post-secondary programs. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's what I've been seeing a noticeable shift towards. I don't want to knock 4-year education. I went to law school. It was great for me. I don't think law school is for everyone. Yeah. I also don't think 4-year education is for everyone. What I'm seeing now through our marketplace is a preference towards the straight to work skills training. So rather than 4 years of a liberal arts education, nothing's wrong with it if that's what you want to pursue. People, especially the younger adults or the non-traditional student, they're opting for isolated skills training in one industry vertical, whether it's allied health, whether it's technology like IT or cybersecurity. And then from that 8 to 12 month program, because some of these programs aren't even associates 2-year programs. These are shorter. They'll go straight into the workforce. So back to why I was excited to speak with you today, I see these parallels. I see us as interacting with the same human, the same student, the same adult learner. You get them first. I sort of see them afterwards. So it's a very nice arc that we're seeing in terms of upskilling and reskilling when you come from a non-traditional path.
If you're afraid of success, this message isn't for you. Every year, higher ed talks about change. But Insights EDU 2026, it's the catalyst. The Modern Learner Report drops here first, revealing how learners are thinking, searching, and deciding right now. Spoiler, most institutions aren't keeping up. 3 days on the beach in Fort Lauderdale, February 17th to the 19th, 2026. Over 65 powerhouse speakers, real strategy, real data, only built for leaders ready to own their transformation. Reserve your spot now at insightsedu.com. Early bird pricing ends December 15th. The EdUp experience has delivered over 1,000 episodes with higher ed leaders from around the world. Now you can support the show for just $5.99 a month and lock in that rate for life when you join before December 31st, 2025. You'll enjoy ad-free early access to episodes. Go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com. Click support the show and secure your lifetime rate today.
I think those of you that don't know, GED Testing Service is actually a joint venture between the American Council on Education and Pearson. So we sit at a really interesting intersection between higher ed and K-12. And so we get to see a lot of different things. One of the pieces that Pearson has is this Fathom tool, right? And so it is this algorithm. It's looking at the impact of technology and AI on roles in the future, right? Like 10 years out, not 2 years out, and what current data is showing us in terms of job trends. The bottom line is when you look at all of this, it shows, unfortunately, that there is going to be too many people actually with a 4-year degree than jobs that are I know folks on this podcast don't necessarily want to hear that, right?
I love it. I love it.
So don't stop. That's why I love it. You keep
So, I mean, that's just going to be the reality of things, right? Four-year degree is absolutely still important. I'm not discounting that. It's incredibly important, right? For many, many jobs, but more jobs than not, and especially with the AI impact that's coming, it's going to be those jobs that don't require a four-year degree. But what this also means is there's going to be more need for education, but it's going to be needed at different times. We need on-ramps and off-ramps for people to reskill, upskill, use skills portable into another industry, et cetera. And why this is so excited, I've been doing this. I've been working with the GED program since I moved over from the higher ed side in 2008. This is the most exciting time for GED learners because the playing field is more level than it ever has been in some ways. So there was a big gap. If you didn't have your high school diploma and you didn't have post-secondary, big gap. GED, it was even worse. Then, once you got a GED credential, you got some of that training, you're starting to make a little bit of gains, but you really don't get those gains until you have a credential. And now, because of what's going on with the world and sort of the workforce pipeline, you can leave, get some kind of a training in 6 months. You can get a job that pays $90,000 potentially, right? Or $75,000, a couple of those. You could go into like green energy and you could get into this pathway. You get trained, fairly straightforward. You get this job. This job's not going to be your terminal job, right? You know that. For most people. But you get into that job, this is just an example of this, and then you look and you can see there are 6 verticals within green energy itself where I could go lots of different directions. I could have a career for 25 years. And the best part is I need to reskill or upskill. And for a lot of them, the employers are helping subsidize or pay for that reskilling and upskilling. So there's going to be education on the front end. They're going to get a job. There's going to be education that leads them to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing.
I agree with what you said. Not going to be a terminal job. I think too many. So when we speak with young adults, too many young adults will say, "Oh, that salary is too low," and my initial reaction is, "Well, A, you're saving 4 years of college debt, but B, to your point, Site, this is a stepping stone job. This job is the entryway into the field. Using your example, green energy. You're going to start as a tech. From tech, you're going to go to this. From this, you're going to go to that. And it gets you in, whereas you don't need it all now, and it's not going to be your terminal job. I've had 4 career splits in my 4 decades of working. Yes, it's getting in and positioning yourself to get a head start from getting these proficiencies. I'm with you on that.
Agreed. I was a music and communications major.
Yeah, but what are you doing with it? What are you doing with that right now?
I'm on
right?
a podcast. I guess you could argue my communications training is coming in handy.
There you go. If we could switch it up a bit in looking at your LinkedIn profile, before this event, I saw that you work with WIOA. So that's something I would love for you to talk about, because what I've seen in my marketplace platform for career training, students don't know this benefit exists. A lot of educational providers don't know if they're not in that workforce group, right? I'm not saying the entire institution doesn't know about it, but if you're not part of that workforce department, WIOA. But I've found it to be one of the, I hate saying best kept secret, because you don't want it to be a secret. You want it to be publicly known. But talk a little about WIOA and how that's helping remove the financial obstacle from upskilling.
Yeah, sure. So there are many facets of WIO, but the one that mostly applies to us is the way this works is there's basically a federal grant or an allocation that goes down to the states. States are supposed to match that, 50-50, and states do that in various ways. Some are slightly under, some are over, just depends. And then those get pushed down into these local adult education programs. And so that might be like Cuyahoga Community College, right? Might have a GED program. And so they're doing a GED preparation, but a student might come in, maybe they're at like a 6th grade level, and it's going to take them that, year and a half, 2 years. They might have someone who comes in at a higher level, but that's basically free. So that teacher, that curriculum, that training, all of that is basically free to most of those learners. And so they go through that program. There's a diagnostic test that's provided for free. The curriculum is provided for free, the teachers, et cetera. And then they go and they sit for their GED exam. The GED exam cannot be paid for WEO, but that's a policy. That's a policy debate for another day. I don't know why they leave people at the altar, if you will, get them all that way through and then don't do that. But
I
basically,
actually did not know that.
yeah. So it's a strange thing. So then I would say another fact folks should know is about 35% of our learners who go and sit for a GED exam every year go through those adult education programs. But roughly 60%, there's about 10% that are incarcerated in federal or state facilities. But the 60% or so that are taking the GED test are doing it on their own. But just because they're doing it on their own doesn't mean they haven't come in contact with some WIOA, like a One Stop or, some other service that's out there that's being provided in these local communities that are tied with workforce investment boards that the states run. And they hear about it, they get a push, they get a nudge, and then that encourages them to go and sit in or study for a GED program. Some of them are battle scarred from K-12. They had they mostly have good teachers, but sometimes they have a teacher that, is kind of out for them or did something and kind of, they got out of the system and left a bad taste in their mouth. So the last thing they want to do is come and sit in a classroom. And so some of those learners are doing things on their own, which we're seeing some fascinating things with AI and the impact we can make with those learners. But that WEO is critically important. We had a bit of I don't know if you want to get into this. We had a bit of a funding disruption, the empowerment issue this last June and July, and some programs closed down just for that 1 month. Most are back, but the president's budget calls for zeroing out of those funds for next fiscal year. It will be devastating. And the reason it's devastating is not just because of someone getting their GED credential, but let's go back to workforce trends. Everyone cares about filling jobs in critical industries. Bottom line is the demographics do not add up to the retirements that are coming and the jobs that are being created. Yes, we can focus in K-12 and we should be focusing in K-12, but we have 160,000 learners who are very ready to enter a career training program right away. And they're much more closer to those jobs. And so they're ready. We've shown that they're, hungry, they have grit, they have determination to do this. We need to keep investing because there's a missing rung in the ladder. So we have all these employers, Amazon, Walmart, cloud computing, whatever it is. They have all these roles, don't have enough people to fill the roles. And so they're always trying to find people to come in. Then you have people in the K-12 pipeline that are trying to find these jobs. We have apprenticeship programs here and there, but in America, we have these missing rungs in the ladder. And so WIOA and adult education, GED, workforce boards, pre-apprenticeship programs, we have to keep being intentional and investing there so that we can connect the talent with the jobs that are available and what industry needs.
I agree. And I think you were just in Capitol Hill talking to Congress about this, yes?
Yep. Last week I was there talking to some education committee members about the importance of WIOA and the impact of this.
How did those, without tipping your cards, how did those talks go?
Yeah, sure. I think it's an interesting time. I think they do understand, and maybe I shouldn't say this, it's one of the rare partisan issues, usually both sides of the aisle can agree on this because they understand it. Because most of them have either been an employer themselves or they've worked in an industry and they know kind of what's going on with industry, or people that are donating to their campaigns are, a bug in their ear saying, hey, this is a problem for us. So most of them understand it. What this really comes down to is the level of investment and who should be investing. And I will tell you that some policymakers believe that employers should be investing, in this and less of the government, although I think there's a place for all of them. I would say we need to keep the government investment where it is, but we do need employers to come down the ladder a little bit and have some of those benefits available to make those connections. The last thing I'll say is there's some policy things that just don't make sense to me. So, there's basically a tax credit if you're a company for education benefits for your employees up to a certain amount, but certificate programs are eligible. Right? Why? Especially when we just talked about all of these, the trend.
Exactly.
And then, that's what you need to really move forward is it's less about 4-year degrees those are still important, but it's really about getting a certificate or 1 year, whatever a credential it is, so that you can go to the next job. That's also beneficial for employers too. So that's a gap, I think, from the policy space.
It's a huge gap. It's actually a thorn in my side. If you're looking when you said that, that's when I piped up. Also, my reaction, because it's outmoded thinking. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years, go to college, get a 4-year degree. I see why the rules were written that way. But now the term certificate, I don't even like to use that term. It's skills training. And $5,200 isn't enough to go do anything at a 4-year institution, but it's the perfect amount to get concrete skills training for a very defined role at a very defined job that you probably already have because your employer is paying for it. You're right. That's a different podcast.
Yeah. Right.
But but I'm with you on that. You mentioned when you're on the Hill that they want an employer buy-in. I was actually surprised to hear you say that. I thought maybe they would say it's more of a state issue, and maybe it's the federal state issue that's where the tension would be. So I was a little surprised to hear them say they want the employer to buy in, because the employer is getting the employee and then they're paying the salary, and that's really the employer's contribution. But maybe I just showed myself to be a capitalist.
No, you're right. You're right. That is also a debate as well. Could the states do this better than the federal government? The answer is yep, yes. But the way WIOA is set up is it gives the block funds with requirements to show that you're making these gains. It gives it to the states, and it requires the states to have a workforce development board with the governor sitting on it and people appointed by the governor. The community colleges have to be involved. Local employers have to be involved. Has to serve disaffected youth. I mean, there are requirements in WIOA, but then it goes down to the states, and the states are the ones, and even the local workforce development boards are talking with their local industry to say, in my community, these are the jobs that are growing. This is the factory that's closing where we need to rescale, and this is where we need to spend that time and energy. So it really is happening on the state level. So just to say the states can do it better, so let's eliminate funding, though, those are two very different things.
Very different conversations.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that as well. I want to bring it back from the WIOA, which is policy. And if we went too deep in policy, forgive us. You mentioned earlier AI. That's a hot topic. I'm curious, from the proficiency skills-based training that the GED caters towards, is AI covered now? Will it be covered now? Is it on the roadmap? Is it already on the road?
We've embraced AI, but carefully. So for us, with the GD population, like I said, life's messy. There are lots of things. One little thing can cause you to drop off your journey, right? Stall out, stop out. So we're really careful when we introduce anything into the journey that it's going to be helpful and it's sort of curated and it's not going to create a stumbling block. But I can tell you it's going to be game changing, and we're already seeing some pretty dramatic things. And so what I take from the AI piece specifically for this population and for us is, first, it's been super fascinating to see that AI can be a shame remover. And so what I mean by that is we have an AI chat, that we've also implemented alongside live agents who are doing chat and phone calls. We monitor it super, super closely. And what we find is there's no such thing as a stupid question when you're asking it to an AI chatbot. You will ask any question, students ask any question, they ask 10 times almost more questions than they do to a live person. What that means is they can ask the questions that they, might have shame around. They're going to feel more confident. They're going to have better information, and they're going to continue on their journey. So I think that's just a fascinating finding. And then the second thing for me is we've launched an AI tutor. We started with math because that, as I said before, is the most source subject, at least for American students. And so we built this AI tutor in as sort of a support. So we built this app that is different than what's on the website. It's kind of a little bit of leading people through their journey, and then it's providing some support. And so students are using that. We just launched this in July, and we found that students who opt to use the AI are using it almost 3 times longer. They're on the app 3 times longer than any other grad or any other student. They're more likely to come back. And now we've already, just in the couple of months we've had it, we're already starting to see them take predictive practice tests. They're more likely to take a test. They're likely to score higher on a test. So lots of really good results just from that first AI tutor. And when we delve into that, one of the things that we find is it's, I don't know about you, but my attention span's getting shorter as I get older, not better. And so, that 2-minute video, I try as hard as I can to concentrate, but my mind just keeps going other places. And so what we find is AI is much more interactive than, say, video. So you might, when we introduce a concept, it needs to be no more than 90 seconds, right? We know that. And so a student can take it in, and then you got to drill down. You got to give them an example. AI is like a teacher in some ways. It's asking you, Darius, what's the answer to this? And it will sit there and wait. It's not going to keep moving on. And, it's going to stay there until you ask it something, you ask it to move to something different, or you ask it to drill down. So that's been super helpful for GD grads. We also are gleaning some really good information. Like we know where exactly 2 places where students are stumbling in math right now. So we can then use AI. This is another tangent of AI, is really expanding to create like practice items and things that we can get closer to what a student's struggling with, and then drill down, and then them working with the AI to conquer those things so that it's not a problem for them later.
Wow. Unfortunately, coming up to time. What a great conversation. This has been fantastic. Talk about some extra goodness in my life. Oh my God, this has been great. So I'm going to ask you, CT, the last question. We usually ask, what do you see as the future of higher education? But I'm going to ask you, what do you see as the future of education? You talked about, a little bit earlier on in the conversation, but if you can expound, what do you see is going to happen in the future of education?
Sure. Skills, right? All about skills. It's going to be measuring skills. It's going to be acquiring skills. It's going to be able to demonstrate those skills, digital wallets, badges, to share those skills. And then education is going to be at every facet, every stage in your life. It's not going to be something you do once and put away, or do twice and put away. You're going to have to continue, all of us are going to continue to reskill, re-educate. And so it's exciting for me, growing up in the education space and always being in education, is it's going to be in people's lives always. And I think there are lots of opportunities to sort of impact lives those way, but it also requires those of us in education who thought in this very traditional mindset of you do this, then this, then this. It's not like that at all. It's going to be a massive spiral where people are taking, different paths on their journey, coming back, different paths, coming back, re-educating. That's what education is going to be.
Yeah, I love it. And what's interesting is that that's something that most people don't know, is that we kind of talked about, Joe and I, my co-founder of the EdUp experience, that we wanted to have a mission set that we would inspire people to have a lifelong learning mindset, no matter the path they choose. And that's always been something. This was almost 6 years ago that we talked about this. And a lot of people don't know that that's the EdUp experience mission. That's why you're here. And Darius, my God, Darius, well done, sir. I'm going to outro you. He's first-time guest co-host, and he's going to come back because I want him to come back. He is Darius Goldman, founder and CEO at Career Bond. Darius, thank you so much for being here.
I loved it, Elvin. And CT, thank you for letting us grill you. I hope it didn't feel like a grilling.
Oh, it totally didn't. I could do this for a few more hours.
You're almost at Capitol Hill, so if you could tolerate them, this is fun for you.
No comment.
So let me outro you. Ladies and gentlemen, he's your guest today. He is the one, the only CT Turner. He's CEO at the GED Testing Service. CT, thank you so very much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp. Block out your calendar, bring your team, and lock in your spot, because Insights EDU early bird pricing ends December 15th. We'll see you in Fort Lauderdale, February 17th to the 19th, 2026, for 3 days that will disrupt what you think you know about marketing and enrollment for today's modern learner. Support the EdUp experience for just $5.99 a month and lock in that rate for life. You'll get ad-free early access to episodes. But hurry, price goes up after December 31st, 2025. Visit edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and click support the show.